Welcome back to Spiritual Journals, the place where we come together to explore faith, uncover hope, and discover a deeper sense of purpose in our lives. Whether you're here for the first time or you've been following this journey with us for a while, I am so glad you're here today. What we're diving into has the potential to transform the way you see your circumstances, your faith, and even yourself. You see, life can often feel confusing, uncertain, or overwhelming. We all face moments where we wonder, what's the bigger picture here? That's where faith comes in, and today, I'm going to share a verse that might just change everything for you. It's from the book of Isaiah, chapter 55, verse 9. It says, "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways and my thoughts than your thoughts." This is a simple yet profound reminder of who God is and how much bigger His plans are than we could ever imagine. If you've ever felt like your plans weren't working out or like you've been waiting for answers that don't seem to come, this verse is for you. We're going to unpack what it means to trust in God's higher ways, even when life doesn't make sense. By the end of this video, I believe you'll walk away with a renewed sense of peace, clarity, and hope. So grab a notebook, your Bible, or just settle in, because you don't want to miss this. Let's dive in together and explore why Isaiah 55 verse 9 could be the key to unlocking something extraordinary in your life today. Why Isaiah's words speak to us today. The book of Isaiah, and specifically chapter 55, was written during a time of great turmoil and uncertainty for the people of Israel. To fully understand the impact of Isaiah 55 verse 9, we first need to grasp the historical and emotional context in which it was spoken. Isaiah was addressing a people in exile, men, women, and children who had been uprooted from their homeland, stripped of their sense of security, and left to wonder if God had abandoned them. Imagine the pain of being torn from everything familiar, forced to live in a foreign land, and facing the daily question, why is this happening to us? In those days, exile wasn't just a physical displacement, it was also deeply spiritual. The Israelites' exile was a result of their disobedience to God, but in the midst of their suffering, many began to feel hopeless. They were confused, lost, and deeply unsure about what God's plans were for them. Would He ever bring them back home? Could they trust Him again? Or had God's promises failed? Doesn't that sound familiar? You might not be living in physical exile today, but many of us experience seasons where life feels like we're wandering in a spiritual wilderness. You may have lost a job, ended a relationship, or found yourself facing unexpected health struggles or personal failures. In those moments, it's natural to feel like the Israelites did, confused, lost, and wondering if God is still present. Maybe you've prayed for clarity, but all you see are unanswered questions. Maybe you've asked for help, but it feels like silence is all you've received. This is why Isaiah's message is so relevant, even today. When Isaiah proclaimed God's words, "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways and my thoughts than your thoughts," he was reminding the Israelites and us of one crucial truth: God's perspective is infinitely bigger than ours. Think of it this way: imagine standing on the ground in the middle of a dense forest. All you can see are the trees directly in front of you. You can't see the path ahead or what's on the other side. But imagine someone looking at that same forest from above, from a plain or a mountain. Their perspective would be entirely different. They could see the whole layout of the forest, including the path you're struggling to find. That's how God sees our lives. While we're often focused on what's immediately in front of us, God sees the entire picture, including how the challenges we face now will ultimately lead to something greater. Isaiah 55 verse 9 isn't just a poetic statement, it's a lifeline. For the Israelites, it was a promise that their suffering wasn't without purpose. God hadn't abandoned them, He was working out a plan far greater than they could comprehend. And the same is true for us. In our moments of confusion and doubt, Isaiah's words remind us that we serve a God whose wisdom and plans far exceed our limited human understanding. Let's pause here for a moment. Have you ever gone through something that didn't make sense at the time, but later you realized it was exactly what needed to happen? Maybe a closed door led to an unexpected opportunity, or a difficult season taught you a lesson you now carry with you. Those are moments when we catch a small glimpse of God's higher ways. It's not always easy to trust during the process, but Isaiah's words invite us to lean into faith, knowing that God's perspective is so much bigger than ours. When we embrace this truth, it doesn't mean our struggles magically disappear. What it does mean is that we can find peace in the middle of the storm. Isaiah's message wasn't meant to erase the Israelites' suffering but to give them hope, a reminder that God's plans were still in motion, even when they couldn't see it. And that same hope is available to you today. So ask yourself, what are you struggling with right now that feels like a wilderness moment? What area of your life feels uncertain, confusing, or even hopeless? Take a moment to think about those things, and then consider this: if God's ways are higher than ours, is it possible that He's working behind the scenes in ways you can't yet understand? Is it possible that what feels like a delay or a detour is actually part of a bigger plan? Isaiah 55 verse 9 challenges us to shift our focus from our limited perspective to God's infinite wisdom. It's a reminder that while we may not have all the answers, we can trust the one who does. Just as the heavens are higher than the earth, God's plans for you are greater than anything you could imagine. So, take heart. Even in the confusion, even in the waiting, God is at work, and His ways are always good. Why does it matter today? Here's where it gets personal. Let's talk about how Isaiah 55 verse 9 applies to the world we're living in right now. We live in a culture of instant gratification. Think about it, everything is designed to be fast and easy. Want to talk to someone? Send a text or hop on a video call. Need something delivered? Click a button, and it's at your doorstep in a day. Hungry? Swipe on an app, and food shows up in minutes. We're wired to expect things to happen on our timeline. But when life throws us into situations where things don't go according to plan, where the answers don't come quickly, or when our prayers seem unanswered, it's easy to start doubting God's plan. Let's be honest, when life feels uncertain, our natural response is frustration. We say things like, "Why is this happening to me?" or, "God, I thought we had a deal." But here's the truth: God doesn't operate on our timeline or follow our human expectations. Isaiah 55 verse 9 invites us to let go of the illusion of control and instead place our trust in a God whose ways are infinitely higher than ours. His perspective isn't just slightly better or a little clearer, it's completely beyond anything we can comprehend. Let's go a little deeper. Beyond instant gratification, we also live in a world dominated by constant comparison. Everywhere we look, whether it's social media, work, or even family, we see people who seem to be doing better than us. Maybe they've got the job we want, the relationship we're praying for, or the life that looks perfect on the outside. When things aren't going well for us, we can quickly spiral into feelings of jealousy, inadequacy, or even hopelessness. Why them and not me, we wonder. This is where Isaiah 55 verse 9 comes in as a much-needed reality check. The verse reminds us that God's plan for you isn't the same as His plan for them. And that's a good thing. We can only see a small fraction of the bigger picture, but God sees it all. The Bible tells us that His ways are higher than ours, meaning that what He's doing in your life is uniquely tailored to your purpose, your growth, and your future. That means you don't need to worry about someone else's timeline or blessings because God has something specific and incredible in store for you. Let me share a practical example. Imagine you're baking a cake. You've mixed all the ingredients, poured the batter into the pan, and put it in the oven. Now, imagine someone standing next to you, constantly opening the oven door to see if the cake is ready. If you keep opening the door, what happens? The heat escapes, the cake takes longer to bake, and it may not turn out the way it's supposed to. That's what happens when we try to rush God's plans. We're so focused on seeing results that we forget to trust the process. Isaiah 55 verse 9 reminds us to close the oven door and let God do His work. His timing is perfect, and the outcome will be far greater than we could ever create on our own. Here's another layer to this verse: it gives us peace when life doesn't make sense. Think about it, There are moments in life when we go through pain, loss, or disappointment, and we're left asking, why, God? Maybe you've been there recently. Maybe you're there right now. In those moments, Isaiah 55 verse 9 offers us comfort. It tells us that while we might not understand what's happening, we can trust the one who does. God's higher ways mean that He sees the end from the beginning. He knows how every piece of your story fits together, even when it feels like chaos to you. Sometimes, it's not until we look back that we realize how God was working all along. Maybe you didn't get the job you desperately wanted, but it led you to an even better opportunity. Maybe a relationship ended, but it made room for the right person to come into your life. Or maybe you faced a season of hardship, only to discover later that it built strength and character in you that you never would have had otherwise. These are the moments when we catch a glimpse of God's higher ways. So, how does this verse impact our lives today? It's an invitation to surrender. It's a reminder that we don't have to figure everything out or carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. Instead, we're called to trust the one who holds the bigger picture. That doesn't mean life will always be easy, but it does mean that we can find peace even in the uncertainty, knowing that God's plans are good, His timing is perfect, and His ways are always higher. Isaiah 55 verse 9 isn't just a verse to memorize, it's a truth to live by. It challenges us to stop chasing quick fixes, to let go of comparison, and to trust in the unseen work of a loving and all-knowing God. So, the next time you're tempted to doubt or despair, remember this: His ways are higher, His thoughts are greater, and He is working all things together for your good, even when you can't see it yet. I remember a time in my life when I didn't get the job I desperately wanted. You know the feeling, right? You prepare, you pray, and you pour your heart into something, only to hear the dreaded words, "We've decided to go in a different direction." I was crushed. This wasn't just any job, it was something I had been working toward for months. In my mind, it was the perfect fit. I had envisioned my future, my growth, and even the fulfillment I thought I'd find in that role. So, when it didn't work out, it felt like my world had come crashing down. I found myself questioning everything. Why, God? Why didn't this happen for me? But here's the thing, time has a way of revealing the bigger picture. It wasn't long after that rejection that another opportunity came my way, one that I hadn't even considered. It was a position that didn't look like what I thought I wanted, but it ended up being exactly what I needed. In that role, I learned new skills, met people who shaped my life in powerful ways, and discovered a passion I didn't even know I had. Looking back now, I can clearly see that what I initially thought was rejection was actually God's redirection. This is what Isaiah 55 verse 9 is all about. It says, "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways and my thoughts than your thoughts." In the moment of disappointment, it's hard to see how God is working. We tend to fixate on what we think is best for us, but Isaiah reminds us that God's perspective is infinitely greater than ours. He sees the entire tapestry of our lives, not just the single thread we're focused on. Think about it like this: when we experience rejection, it feels like a door slamming in our face. But what if that closed door is actually God steering us away from something that isn't meant for us? Or better yet, what if He's guiding us towards something far greater than we could ever imagine? That's exactly what happened to me. If I had gotten that first job, I never would have ended up where I am today. And where I am today is so much better than anything I could have planned for myself. Here's the key takeaway: trusting God's plan doesn't mean life will always go the way we expect. It means believing that, even in the moments of confusion, heartbreak, and disappointment, God is working behind the scenes for our good. We don't always get immediate clarity, but we can have faith that His ways are higher and His plans are perfect. So, the next time you face rejection, whether it's a missed opportunity, a failed relationship, or any other closed door, remember that it might just be a divine redirection. Take comfort in Isaiah 55 verse 9, and know that God is always working in ways we can't yet see, leading us to something far greater than we could ever dream of. Let me ask you this. What's something in your life right now that feels confusing, overwhelming, or even hopeless? It could be a tough decision you're facing, a relationship that's falling apart, a dream that feels out of reach, or a season of waiting that's testing your patience. Take a moment to reflect on it. What's weighing on your heart? Now, I want to encourage you to share it. Write it in the comments below. Why? Because sometimes, just putting it into words can be the first step toward healing and clarity. Plus, you're not alone. I'd love to read your story, and I'd be honored to pray with you. Here's the truth: trusting in God's higher ways isn't something any of us master overnight. It's a journey, and we're all walking it together. One of the most powerful things about this journey is the reminder that we don't have to carry our burdens alone. In Isaiah 55 verse 9, we're reminded of a God who sees the big picture, who knows the end from the beginning, and who is always working for our good. But let's be honest, there are moments when we need that truth to be spoken into our lives by others. Sometimes we need a community to remind us that we're not alone and that God's plans are always bigger and better than our own. By sharing what you're going through in the comments, you're inviting others to come alongside you in prayer and encouragement. You're stepping into vulnerability, yes, but you're also creating space for connection. And here's the beautiful part: your story, no matter how messy or uncertain it feels, could be the exact encouragement someone else needs. Maybe someone who's reading this is going through something similar, and your willingness to share will give them the courage to trust God's plan in their own life. I'll go first. One of the things I've learned in my own walk of faith is that God often works through the people around us. There have been so many times when I felt lost or unsure, and it was someone else's words of encouragement, their prayers, or their testimony that reminded me of God's goodness and faithfulness. That's why this moment is so important. This isn't just about watching a video or listening to me talk. This is about building a community of people who remind one another to trust God's higher ways. So let's make this interactive. Right now, wherever you are, take a moment to think about what you're facing and type it out in the comments. It doesn't have to be polished or perfect, just be real. And as you do, I want to encourage everyone watching this to take a moment to respond to at least one other comment. Let's pray for each other, encourage each other, and remind each other that we serve a God whose ways are higher, whose plans are greater, and whose love is unshakable. Together, we're learning to trust in His higher ways, even when we can't see the full picture. Let's grow in faith, lean into hope, and build a community where we lift each other up. I can't wait to read your comments, and I'm here to walk with you in prayer and encouragement every step of the way. Let's do this together. So, the next time you're feeling frustrated or lost, I want you to pause and remember this powerful truth from Isaiah 55 verse 9, "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways and my thoughts than your thoughts." Let those words settle into your heart for a moment. God's thoughts are higher than your thoughts, and His ways are higher than your ways. Even when life feels confusing, even when nothing seems to make sense, you can trust this: God's got a plan, and it's good. Think about that for a second. The Creator of the universe, the one who spoke the stars into existence and knows every detail of your life, has a plan for you. It may not look like the plan you imagined, and it may not unfold on your timeline, but it is a plan filled with purpose, hope, and love. Isaiah 55 verse 9 reminds us that God sees what we can't see. His perspective is infinitely greater than ours, and His love for us is beyond measure. He's not just watching your story unfold from afar, He's actively working, even in the moments when it feels like He's silent. So, the next time you're frustrated by a closed door or overwhelmed by uncertainty, remember this truth: God hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't abandoned you. He's guiding you, step by step, through the twists and turns of life. You may not understand it now, but one day you'll look back and see how every piece of the puzzle fit together perfectly. And when you do, you'll realize that His ways weren't just higher, they were better than anything you could have imagined. Before we wrap up, I want to encourage you to take this message and carry it with you. Share it with someone who needs a little encouragement today. Maybe there's a friend, a family member, or even a coworker who's feeling stuck or discouraged. Share this video with them, because sometimes, all it takes is a gentle reminder of God's goodness to turn someone's day, or even their life, around. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Journals if you haven't already. By subscribing, you're not just joining a community, you're joining a family of people who are committed to growing in faith, encouraging one another, and trusting in God's plans together. Plus, you'll never miss any of the upcoming videos that are designed to uplift and inspire you. Remember, no matter what you're going through, God's ways are higher, His thoughts are greater, and His love for you is unshakable. When life feels uncertain, hold on to the truth of Isaiah 55 verse 9 and trust that God is leading you towards something incredible. Until next time, stay blessed, stay hopeful, and never forget that you are deeply loved by a God who is working all things together for your good. I can't wait to see you in the next video.